Today's episode is with Dee Martin, who is an Arizona native. She has been a school teacher for the last 14 years, recently left teaching to create her own business, which is super exciting. She's a virtual assistant that really supports women in the fitness and wellness industry, which is really cool. I'm excited to talk more about that. She also has 3 kids, so she's a mom. She came from a family where her dad was a business owner. And you say that you did not want to own your own business because of that.
Never.
Tell me
No, I
more.
was
Tell me
very
more
adamant.
about that.
Yeah. So my dad, he owned a plastering company. And I remember being woken up in the middle of the night. I'm a freshman in high school. And he's like, hurry, I need you to write this proposal. Hurry, I need you to go and send this invoice. And, even having to work with our accountant and because it was a family owned business. And
Mm.
I'm just like, no, I never want to touch business ever in my life. If this is what it is, I don't want anything to do with this.
Oh, that's
But now that I've
interesting.
grown up from it, I can see everything that he was able to do for our family because of it.
Mm.
So it's a different
Hmm.
perspective now that I'm an adult in it.
And it's also interesting, like you didn't not want a business because of what your dad was doing, but you didn't want a
Mhm.
business because of the ways that it required your help, like what you had to do as a teenager. Is that right?
It was that, and it's a lot of stress.
Yeah.
Running a business is, there's no giving it to someone else. You're the go-to person. And
Yeah.
that was him for sure. It was 24/7. And I remember anytime we were on vacation, he was with us and not with us, if that makes sense, because he was always
Mm.
on the
Hmm.
phone and calling this person and calling that person. And, we have all these great memories, but it kind of takes away when you do remember that part of it too. So
Mm.
the seeing
Hmm.
the stress and everything that went with it was not something I wanted, but here I am now.
Yeah, you want to know what's something that's super interesting about this is like I actually have had in the past, like maybe I don't know, 5 years ago, one of my
Mhm.
kids said to me, "Why do you do this? It feels like you hate this. It feel, and she was like, it feels like you hate this. It feels like super stressful. It feels like
Mhm.
there's always something wrong. Like you have to." And I was so happy she said that because
Mhm.
it actually, because what I realized is that she never hears they don't my children weren't really hearing like the really positive parts. They weren't hearing like the
Right.
day-to-day things that were going well. They were
Yeah.
only hearing the times when I was like super stressed or like, oh
Mhm.
gosh, what I got to do this, or I was like late to pick them up, or I was like da 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 da, and so I was like in a heightened stress, and so they were like,
Yes.
oh, this is terrible, like why would I. And so I actually made a conscious decision after she said that. I was like, I actually love what I do. I actually love
Mhm.
my job. Yeah, it is really stressful and everything does come
Yes.
back to me. And there are times when it's really hard because I'm feeling all these things and also like
Mhm.
trying to be the mom and take care of the children and all of those things. And I'm like, but I actually don't want them to believe that about me or my business, that I'm choosing to do
Right.
something that I hate every single day. Right.
Right.
And
Mhm.
the really cool success story in this right now is that the other day, my child Cohen was like, do you still have a job? And I have like 15 employees over at my print
Right.
shop, and I'm like constantly
Uh-huh.
working. And I was like, well, yeah, of course. And he's like, I just never hear you like talk about it that much or like complain about it. And it's like, and I
That's
was so
awesome.
yeah, I was like, oh, that's so cool that.
Mhm.
I also realize that it's really important to share the celebration part or the positive
Yes.
things. And so like, oh, like, look how cool this is. Or, hey, can I share this with you? I'm really excited about this project
Mhm.
or this thing that happened. And so I love that you brought that up.
Yeah, no, and even you saying that, so my mom also worked in the business too. She kind of did more of the back-ended administration. And now when I look back, I do remember that because she had the flexibility, she took us to school every day, or she would chaperone our field trips, or she would volunteer in the classroom, and she was able to do those kinds of things. So as I grew my family, got older, that's really what I wanted, which is why I kind of shifted into what I shifted into. So you're right.
Mm,
In the moment, and maybe it is from a kid's perspective because you only see
it
one
is.
view of it. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no, my mom always told me that. She said, I love that I could every day pick you up and drop you off. And it's something so simple, but with the job I had before, I wasn't able to do that. And
Yes.
now I'm able to.
Okay, and I love that your mom approached it not look what I'm doing for you, but I love
Mhm.
that I get to do this because of this job that I have. And I think that that could change everything about the way that they hear it and they perceive it too, because it would be really easy to
Yeah,
be like, "Hey, I know this is really stressful and I know I'm working a lot over here, but I do that so that I can take you to school. I do that so I can blah blah blah." And that
right.
feels like an additional weight for the children. I feel like that's
Hmm.
maybe why they could reject it a little bit more.
Yeah,
But I love the approach of saying, I love so much that my work allows me to take you to school. I love so much that if you need me, I can stop what I'm doing and I can come and be there for you and help you.
yeah.
I love that. And so it's like a tone of gratitude for them.
Hmm.
And that's really valuable. I feel like all of us could use that and apply that when we have the ability to, you know, to have that flexibility.
Oh yeah, it's hard, but yeah, it's a good reminder.
Ah, I love that. Okay, so first of all, I we just got right into talking, but thank you
I
so much.
know.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. And was is there anything else that you would add to what the listeners should know about you?
I think probably just that I'm someone who loves being comfortable. And so
Ooh.
making this shift was really hard. And because I also have a very close extended family where decisions we make, we always consider whether it's intentional or not. We always consider if
Mm,
there's a possible ripple effect. What's so and so going to think? What's my mom going to think? We really care about those opinions. Um, and growing up, I remember my mom and I would kind of butt heads a lot because I was definitely not someone who would always fall in line. I would always push back on everything. And now that I'm an adult, I see that some things just didn't feel comfortable for me. I didn't see why I had to do certain things. So
mm-hmm,
um, now when we talk about it, she says, those are things that I wish I had nurtured more when you were younger.
mm.
Um, yeah,
Okay,
so I
that's
love being
really
comfortable,
good. Okay, so
but
there's a
it's
few
good to
things
be
that
uncomfortable.
yeah, there's a few things that stick out to me in what you just shared. So the first thing is that you love being comfortable, and people who love to be comfortable tend to not just love to be comfortable with themselves, but they love to make sure everyone else around them is comfortable.
Hmm.
And when you're in that tight-knit family and you want to and you go to each other for decisions and for feedback and all of those things, like wanting to keep everyone else comfortable, is that something that you experienced?
Absolutely. Especially, when you're a mom. I mean, you want to make sure that everyone is good with the routine and you don't want to be the cause
Mm.
of the shift. I mean, I remember even telling my oldest, I have a 10-year-old Dominic, and when I told him that I was leaving teaching, he started crying because he said that, he's like, you've always been a teacher, you've always gone to the same school. And, it broke my heart seeing him do that, but I knew what I was going to be able to do because of the
Mm.
shift. Or even with my husband, he has his business. And if I change what I'm doing, that's going to change the dynamic. And, you don't want to create discomfort in your own family. So,
You're all, but do
yeah,
you? But do you? What
yeah,
have you what have you learned about creating discomfort,
right.
right?
Hmm.
The other thing that I think is really interesting is that your mom mentioned to you that she wishes that she would have nurtured that part of you more, that
Hmm.
needed to understand and wanted that confirmation for yourself why or why you wouldn't do something.
Hmm.
What do you think about that?
Um, Now I see that she and I are very much alike. And I
Okay.
think she's always known that when
Mm,
I was younger. But I think when you're now that I'm a parent, you just see it as them just not listening and they're just being disrespectful but my siblings and I are so different. And if someone is going to say something, it's probably going to be me in my family, or if someone's going to have an opinion, it's probably going to be me. And now she loves that because, we have such different dynamics in my family that, if I feel like someone, needs to be tended to or we need to have a family discussion, I'm going to initiate that. And um, just being younger, she does remember times where, if I wasn't confident in something, instead of being encouraged to really speak up and go do something, sometimes it was just a lot of, well, just walk away, just
mm.
ignore it. And she wishes that she hadn't encouraged that so much.
I think it's
really to
interesting
just speak
too.
up.
Yeah, you mentioned that you and your mom were a lot alike.
Hmm.
And I think sometimes when we're, it's possible that she could see the way that you guys were alike and that she maybe had some of the same desires as you to express your true thoughts or your feelings, or maybe have a little bit of resistance towards what she thought she should be doing. And maybe she
Hmm.
just never really got the courage to do that. And so
Hmm.
sometimes it can be like, oh, why are you brave enough to do this? Or why are
Right.
how are you speaking up? Like, yeah, I've always wanted that, but I never thought that was actually a possibility for me. And so I could see how that could be even more triggering for a parent to be like, wait, that's what I always wanted. Like, now you're doing it, but I didn't get to do it my
Yeah,
whole entire life.
I know.
Right. And you're
Yeah.
like,
Oh,
Mom,
yeah.
it's not too late.
I know. Yeah. And, we still have little conversations like that. Even now with me doing what it is that I'm doing, that was a bigger conversation of, why are you going to leave something so comfortable? And why would you do this? And,
Mm-hmm.
so when I would tell her or even my family, I'm tired of having the rushed mornings. I'm tired of having the frustrated arguments every day about get your shoes. I want to have my slow mornings with my babies, and I always say I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have all these kids to not be with them. um,
Mm-hmm.
and so she would just say, well, that's just how it is. That's what it is. When someone owns a business, that's what it is. But I mean, that was her experience. That's not what every experience has to be. And so that's when I needed to have my sit down with my husband. And I was like, this can't work. This is not going to work for me anymore. We have to do something different. And I have to do something different.
And we talked a little bit before we started recording about how really in 2020, when you were forced into these slower mornings and different situations like that, it brought you, all of a sudden you saw for the first time, like, oh, this feels important to me. This is something I actually want. So can you tell me more about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously in 2020, everyone was kind of forced to stop and think, and we were able to have conversations. And my husband was starting his engineering firm, which is great. And he's always, bless his heart, he's always said he's wanted to go into business. So he was doing it. And, having that extra time, you also had more time on social media. And so I'm seeing all these moms doing these amazing things and
Mm-hmm.
being able to do it at home. And I was so tired of being envious and jealous and saying, I wish. And then at the same time, I'm a teacher and I'm a mom, and I'm giving advice of, you need to go for it. You need to just try. And, if something doesn't feel right, don't stick with it. I'm being a hypocrite and I'm being jealous on a daily basis. And I remember when I had my youngest, who's 10 months now, we went to go get his newborn photo shoots, and our photographer, she had her own business and she did it out of her house. And she was saying that she used to be an elementary school teacher. And I was just like, I'm done. Like, I will no longer be jealous anymore. This is the last time. And since then,
Mm-hmm.
that was it. So that's when I started looking into different things that I could kind of transition into. So I found virtual assisting, and I've always loved fitness, wellness. My major was kinesiology. So I've always loved that. And so I kind of merged the two. And once I found it, that was it. And I had a plan. I said, this is going to be my last year. So after 14 years of teaching, this past school year was my last year.
Wow, that's amazing. And isn't it
Mhm.
interesting how our own advice is the hardest to take?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah. It's very easy to give. I'm very encouraging to my kids and to my students, but
Hmm.
I was not doing what I was preaching, basically.
And do you know what I find so fascinating is we typically give advice that we want for ourselves. We're typically
Mm,
that's like the loudest messaging that we're giving to other people is what we actually want. In fact, I actually did an exercise before, and I have many times of like, hey, like, what advice would you give to your kids about this? What advice would you
mhm.
give to someone about this? Like, what are the three things you want? Like, what do you not want? And then at the end, you're like, surprise, that's actually a message for you. Like everything that you just
Wow.
shared is actually a message for you. This is actually what you want. This is actually what's important to you. This is
Hmm.
actually what you don't want. Now go back and read that to yourself, because that's what we do. We give advice to people, like, and we give encouragement to people, and it's all messaging that we are longing to hear and to live by.
Absolutely. Oh, I completely agree with that. Yeah, because it's just your own self and these own self-doubts that you've had,
Hmm.
and they don't go away just because you get older. They're still in
Yeah.
there somewhere. Yeah. No, I
There's
agree.
also there's also like there's also a cycle that I see if you were that you were breaking in your family specifically. You shared that you guys are really close, which is so beautiful and so wonderful, but it does come with its own difficulties when everyone
Hmm.
feels like they have a say in everyone else's life, right? But as
Hmm.
you're sharing that encouragement with your kids and giving them freedom to kind of think outside the box or for themselves, like that's really beautiful, but also something that you really wanted. And I know it wasn't easy for you to make those decisions or make other decisions. I know you've probably had a lot of different decisions that you've had to kind of, stand firm and like, this doesn't feel right or good for me. And I'm
Hmm.
sorry, like, I don't want to disappoint you, but I would love to talk a little bit about what that looks like when you feel the need to consult with not just your parents, but like your sisters or your brothers or your cousins or your
Hmm.
grandparents or whatever. Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so I mean, we're like I said, we're really tight knit, and we've just kind of we're always in each other's business, always kind of asking, how things are going. So it's kind of one of those things where we don't intentionally realize that we're going to you for advice. It's kind of just always an open-ended conversation. But I remember in that whole kind of 2020, I think the following year, 2021, there was a conversation my mom and I were having, and my dad and I were having, and this decision that I was making in my own head, I kept thinking, what would be the consequences, or what are they going to say? What are they going to think? And once I, made this decision and I had, said out loud what it was that I had wanted, um, then nothing happened. I mean, there was definitely a little
Mm,
bit of pushback, but these things that I had in my head were always just in my head, and they were much worse than what I thought they were going to be. Um, I mean, right after that conversation, 5 minutes later, everything was back to normal. And so when that happened, when I said that out loud and I was kind of giving voice to these things that I had in my head, um, then that gave me the confidence to say, okay, well, I want this too, and this too, and I need this to change, and I need this to change. And it kind of just kept going from there. I mean, I'm always really conscientious, of course, in my own immediate family, because it can't always just be me. There has to be some give
hmm.
and take. So, um, but it's been amazing being able to finally make choices and say what it is that I need, and not feel like, well, maybe next year. Well, maybe in 5 years. Well, maybe when my oldest gets to high school. I mean, I couldn't do that anymore.
So my question for you is the story that you have around like we're a tight knit family and we go to everyone for advice, like it's an open ended conversation. Is that something that is like spoken about in your family? Like, is that spoken as an expectation, or is that like a common, everyone would, if I was having a conversation with each person of your family, would they repeat that same type of phrase?
I think so, because even thinking back, just kind of growing up, we have just always been together, even in this, large house that we grew up in. We were always in the same room. Why wouldn't all spread out? I don't know. But my mom even always had that thought, like, we're only going to have one TV because at least we're all arguing together. She doesn't
Okay.
want all of us spread out. So we always kind of grew up in that. And, all of our family trips were always together. And, it's not like my dad and brothers would go on a trip and then we would stay home. It was always all of us together. And maybe it is my culture.
Yeah.
I'm Mexican, and so that is really, really strong in our family.
Hmm.
So maybe um unknowingly we've always done that. But no, I think that they would all agree with that too.
Well, I just think that sometimes we repeat phrases that have been
Mm,
repeated over and over again, and we
mm,
don't really realize like what it's kind of speaking to everyone. It feels
mm,
like this, because there is absolutely so much beauty in the fact that you guys have a lot of togetherness, that you are spending time together, that you're involved in each other's lives. But there's also a place where it becomes like forced codependency. right? Where
Yes.
you can't, you don't actually, it's without saying, you don't get to make decisions by yourself. And without
Hmm.
saying, I trust you, without saying like, this is your life, it's,
Hmm.
it's, and I think this is really common in a lot of families, and I can see
Hmm.
why it would be even more common in your culture, because I see that unity, that strength, that like we
Hmm.
all support each other. We
Hmm.
all share like finances. Even there's a lot of people in your culture who even share
Hmm.
finances. Like that's an expectation that if you make money, you share it with the other people,
Right.
which can be
Hmm.
so beautiful, and like there's a lot to be learned from that. But I also think when it is given to like when it's given to you as this like expectation of like, this is what we do, like
Hmm.
and it's spun as like this positive thing, like, oh, we are together and we
Hmm.
share everything and we have all the conversations together and we're blah, blah, blah. It like leaves no room for anything else. It's like this
Hmm.
unspoken expectation of like, this is what you do too, right?
Yeah. Right. And I mean, with my family, I think we're definitely more newer kind of generation
Yeah.
thought in that. So there's definitely kind of like more deep rooted cultural traditions that we have and mentalities, like you were saying. But when it comes to that, um, for myself and my siblings with our own families, we definitely started to separate where, yes, there's
Yeah.
definitely elements of our culture that we love and we love the togetherness and the sharing. But we also need to keep certain things to ourselves and to our own family.
Mm,
But
yeah.
it's just kind of like, I feel like it's more of just the natural process of, when family is around, hey, what's going on? Hey, quit my career after 14 years. That's going to
Yeah.
be a conversation piece. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
it's not so much me
absolutely.
going for, advice, but there's going to be opinions and they're going to make it known. Um,
Yeah. But also
but
we can like that could be a really positive thing to have,
mhm,
conversation, and it's okay if we don't all see things like the exact same. And I
right.
actually think it's really good sometimes to stand firm in what feels right for you. Like, so you're sharing, I'm doing this and this feels really good. And maybe for the first time someone said, oh, like maybe something different could feel good for me too. Like I thought I had to stay in this pattern of I already got this job and it's comfortable and I have insurance and blah, blah, blah. So I
Hmm.
should probably just stay here. Or even if it's not with the career, it could be relationships. It could be like thoughts about
Yes.
themselves. And so I always love a good trailblazer, someone who's willing to like say, hey, you could think different. You could see this different. This is an
Right.
opportunity for you to, I'm sharing this with you. And it's okay if you don't understand. It's okay if you see it different. But like,
Mhm.
maybe this could bring something out in you too.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh. And I mean, I think just like for most people, you need to have that one person that
Mm,
makes it look doable, that makes it seem realistic because everything is very scary when it's the unknown. Um,
mhm.
but I mean, nothing's going to change if you don't change something.
Yeah, that's so good and so, so true. What has being willing to make a big change in your life and to trust yourself, like what has that done for your own personal confidence?
Um, I feel like once I made my first decision and then said it out loud and I realized the scariness, there was no scariness that I kept attaching to it. That just really made me feel more comfortable and I think just more confident in my own decisions.
Mm,
Not that I needed anyone else's approval, but I mean,
yeah.
you want people to be encouraging and be excited with you. Um, but in the end, I just need myself and my partner to be excited. And
Mm,
as long as I have that, then that's it. So I mean, it's definitely made me feel more settled in knowing that what I'm doing is really what's best.
yeah,
So I think that the
absolutely.
confidence will always grow. I can't say I'm 100% yes, this is, what I need to be doing, but I'm very settled in the decisions that I'm making. And that's just what I need to keep going.
Yeah, that's so good. And something that comes up a lot in all of these conversations that I have is
Mhm.
that, it's about taking the next best step. It's about trusting yourself for this decision. And things always are changing and pivoting and adjusting. But if we're never willing to change, then it doesn't ever lead us to the next thing. or
Right.
where we, so it's like, it's possible that right now the fitness industry is the perfect place for you. And it's also possible that the fitness industry might change and you might change and find something else. But like,
Hmm.
it is about developing that trust with ourselves in
Hmm.
order to see things and to feel things and to know things and to trust ourselves to make those decisions. Right.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. And I remember this last year that I had, I taught anatomy for juniors and seniors. So my seniors that were graduating, I mean, every conversation that I kept telling them, I just kept saying, don't feel like you have to have it all figured out right now.
Right.
Because that's stressful going in and what am I going to major in? What do I want to be? It's going to change. It's going to change 100 times. And that was another scenario where I realized I'm giving advice and I'm not
Yes.
following my own advice. And I told them, I don't have it all figured out right now.
Yeah.
But as long as I'm trying and um, kind of stepping out of my comfort zone, then I'm going in a better direction, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I have
It's
to follow my own advice.
something that I think is so interesting is that we could sit down and we could draw like this big picture map of like what we would want our life to look like. And I feel like
Mhm.
this is pretty true for the majority of the people, like that we could sit down and be like, okay, and we've kind of done it up until this point of our life where we're like, okay, I want to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and then I want it to look like this, and the
Mhm.
outcome I want is this, and blah, blah, right? And then we get to the place where we have to make like single decisions, and all of a sudden we panic, like we don't trust ourselves in those like
Yes.
individual decisions. But it's like, how
Mhm.
can we, if we think that we can make this big picture, like why don't we trust ourselves in these like little intimate? Because the truth is, the little intimate decisions, the single decisions that we make are
Mhm.
what create that big picture. And so it's like, if you can trust yourself for a big picture vision, like go ahead and trust yourself for those individual decisions,
Mhm.
because those are what are going to create your big picture outcome.
Right. No, absolutely. And I think probably what makes it scarier is because those small decisions are just you. When you have this big picture, at least for
Hmm.
me, I always said, okay, I'm going to graduate and I'll have this job and I'll have this family. Those are all big things that include a lot of elements. But you're right, making those small decisions, I'm the only person that makes those and I'm making that decision, which is why I think it can be a little bit scarier to do that. But you're right, you
Yeah,
have to make those in order to get your big picture.
literally have to. That's the only way
Hmm.
through, right? You're like, oh,
Yeah.
I have to do it.
Yeah.
What has your time been like with your kids?
So we're on summer break, so it's
Yes.
chaos
Okay.
and awesome at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but it's been an adjustment because I was starting up my virtual assisting business
Mm.
while I was still teaching. So it was as soon as dinner was done or while dinner is cooking, I'm on my laptop and I'm kind of hopping back and forth. So at least that part of the chaos is done. But I I've been trying to explain to my kids what mommy's new job is going to look like because they're younger, they don't really understand. They just think if I'm not at a school, then I'm I'm not working.
Hmm.
Um, but no, it's been awesome because my son, who's older, he's 10, he's been asking a lot of questions. And even when I was telling him about today, this is what I'm doing. Oh, well, what's a podcast and what kind of job is that? So it's been awesome that he's been able to kind of ask more questions and he now sees more careers. Um, when we listen to podcasts, he will listen to see what it is that people are doing and he hears their stories. So it's been awesome that they've been able to see these changes and hear these conversations that I'm having.
That's so cool. And
Mm-hmm.
truly the possibilities are endless for
Mm-hmm.
anyone who is just willing to open their mind a little bit and see
Mm-hmm.
what's available, right? Like you
Oh,
don't
yeah.
know what you don't know. And so I love that you're including him in
Mm-hmm.
your new journey of creating your own job and also learning from other people who have different types of jobs, and just
Mm-hmm.
knowing that those possibilities truly are endless is really cool.
Oh yeah. Well, so even I'll tell you the story. So my daughter's only 5, and she's been gung ho that she wants to be a teacher when she grows up. For like the past like
Yeah.
2 years, she's probably said that. So with this conversation, because I always said you can do whatever you want to do, just try. She's like, okay, I'm going to be a Disneyland lady. Like, I don't know what that is. What's a Disneyland lady? So she said that she wants to work at the rides. She wants to let people in at Monsters Inc.
Amazing.
And I'm like, you know what? Go for it. The fact is that, but she's thinking about other jobs. It's not just teacher
Yeah.
because that's all that she saw. So I thought that was so cute. Just the fact that she's even
Yeah.
like having that thought. She wants to be a Disneyland lady. So I was like, all right, girl, go for it.
You know what? I actually had someone on my podcast who is the longest contracted employee entertainer at Disneyland. So
Uh-huh.
when she's ready, let,
She knows someone.
we're gonna hook her up with Billy. We're gonna get her out there. She's gonna be a
That's
Disneyland
cute.
lady. That's so cool. And you know, it's interesting because my whole life I was like, I want to be a teacher. And
Hmm.
I knew that I could either be a dance teacher or a school teacher. And pretty much there was a period for me in my mind. After that, I was like, okay, cool. I want to be a teacher. So that means I have to be a dance teacher or a school teacher because that's all that existed to me. And
Hmm.
so I like grew up and I was a dance teacher. And then I was like, I did an internship for like my senior year in the elementary school. And I was like, okay, I could be a school teacher. Like I would like this. Like I would be good at
Yeah.
this. But then I was like, oh, I hate school. I hate college. Like, I don't want to keep going to school. This is not fun for me.
Hmm.
This is not what I'm like. I just want to be free to create whatever I want. Right. So then I was like,
Hmm.
okay, I'll be a dance teacher. And then after I hired my first business coach, I was like, oh, there's like other kind of teachers out there. It's
Yeah.
possible to teach people about business. It's possible to teach people about life. Like, this is so cool. And we just don't know until we experience certain things or until other people show us or teach us about these different things. But I love that you're doing that for your children now. I think it's super important. And if they want to be a school teacher, amazing, be a school teacher. And then if they
Yeah.
get to the point where they were a school teacher and it was wonderful, but they want something new, choose something new. Like, we
Yeah.
don't have to choose one thing and just like endure through the rest of our life.
Right. Mhm. No, and but that's what it was. You got your job, had your insurance, you got your pension, and that was it. And it doesn't have to be like that anymore. And I love that.
No, that's really awesome. I'm so happy for you. So what would you tell yourself 14 years ago, like when you were, believing all these shoulds about yourself and now you're opening up to this possibility of like, oh, I can listen to myself, I can trust myself. Like, what do you say to her?
I think looking back, I wish I would have told myself not to stay comfortable.
Mm,
Because I love being comfortable. Who doesn't love going to a job or doing something where you could do it, with your eyes closed? And that's kind of what teaching was. It was never something I intended, but it came very natural to me. And I do love my kids, my students. I love my kids. I
yeah.
love my job, but I wish that I had never stopped looking for something else. I just kind of stayed stuck in it. But once 2020 happened, you're right. Like once I started looking and reading and listening, it was this whole other world in education and business and what moms could do where I was just in my little room with,
Hmm.
with my kids. And that's kind of all that I saw. So I wish that I could have told myself to just never stop looking.
Okay, and this, like, that topic is going to people listening. You might say, well, that just like, I just want to be content in my life. Like, I really want to
Mhm.
be content. And so this feels like you're telling me I can't ever be content. And so I wanted to bring up the point that there's a difference between complacency and contentment. And I actually have a great
Mhm.
episode that kind of talks all about this earlier on. But like, complacency means there's no other options. I don't ever have to pay attention to how I'm feeling or what I'm wanting. And you
Mhm.
can absolutely be content. Like you said, you loved your students, you loved your job.
Mhm.
That tells me that you are content with where you were at. But something inside of you was saying there's something different, there's something more, like I want
Mhm.
something new. And that's
Mhm.
where you could have stayed complacent and said, but we're going to ignore that part of you. You need to stop listening to that part of you. You have everything that you could ever want and need. It's fine. You're fine. Ignore that. That would be
Mhm.
staying complacent, right? And you didn't want that. And so I just wanted people to think about that a little bit differently. If for some reason you were
Mhm.
like, you're telling me I can't ever be content. No, be
Mhm.
content, because we want to be in the moment that we are. We want to experience fully where we currently are with our family, with
Hmm.
our career, with our relationship, with the world around us. And if we're not content, like then we are not noticing those things. And we're lacking a lot of gratitude, I feel like, typically. But being complacent is toxic. And it is when we start to feel resentment towards the work that we do or the people around us because we're not listening to ourselves.
Hmm. I love how you said that. And that's exactly how I wish I had worded it. No, you're absolutely right, because I did have those thoughts in my head and I had those feelings in my head, and there's nothing wrong with them, and not to say that maybe if you do love your job and you want to stick with it, that's fine. But you could always still learn something new. Maybe it's
Yeah.
just volunteering, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
it's I don't know, having an experience with your kids and going to try
Yeah.
something different. I mean, you could absolutely stick with what it is that you're doing and love it, because I did love my job. But there was just a little bit of something that was kind of poking at me. So no, I love how you said that.
Well, I hope that's helpful for anyone listening because I
Yeah.
truly believe that like we can be so in tune with ourselves that we can listen and we can hear, we can trust
Hmm.
what it's telling us, even if we don't know what the big picture is going to look like, even if we don't know what the outcome
Hmm.
really truly is. But there is such a gift when we are willing to open up to these new possibilities and these new opportunities for whatever reason. And I'm just really excited for you to have this experience with your being home and truly engaging with the work that you feel called to do, but also in your home with your children and having that freedom and that flexibility, I think is really inspiring and really cool.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so excited. It's interesting because there's a lot of unknowns, but I love having those unknowns now.
Which is so cool because at the very beginning you said, I love being comfortable. And now you're saying, I love the unknowns, which to me is
Yeah.
just such like this is expansive, right? There is so much expansion
Hmm.
happening in you and for you, which is
Yes.
like, that just like lights my heart on fire. So I'm
Yeah.
excited. I'm excited about that for you. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Oh yeah, of course.
And speaking of lighting my heart on fire, I actually want to know. So I have this phrase, fire in her heart, peace in her soul. And it came to me when I was like coaching women and I was trying to figure out like,
Hmm.
what do these women actually need? They say they want this and they say they need this. But then they're
Hmm.
really struggling in these ways. And I was just like, what
Hmm.
do they need? And that phrase came like clear as day to me, fire in her heart, peace in her soul. And it was this
I love
idea
that.
of dancing with both of those things that we
Hmm.
always make sure that we feel alive, that we're doing things that light our heart on fire, that we are inspired and we are like in
Hmm.
motion and fulfillment, and but
Hmm.
also that we are protecting our own peace, that we don't feel like we have to give so much that we no longer have that peace, that we feel like
Hmm.
our peace can only be in this situation or that situation or only if, but we're really intentional about finding the peace and protecting
Hmm.
that and keeping that. So I love these two questions, and they're how I am in all my podcast episodes. So the first one is, what is something that is currently lighting your heart on fire?
Um, I think going back to what I said, the unknowns, I love
Mm,
that. And I think probably the other thing is honestly hearing, because I have listened to your podcast and hearing the other stories, hearing other
mm,
women and their stories and be in places where I imagine that I'll be and my business will be. I love hearing that, because that's what got me here in the first place. I was tired of being
mm.
jealous. I was tired of being envious. And knowing that, some of these women who have these incredible businesses, multi-million dollar businesses are starting off, every single person started somewhere at some point.
Yes.
And so um, I I thrive hearing that. That's kind of, my morning little tradition when I wake up right before my kids, when I'm getting ready to have my coffee, I'm always listening to a story like that. And so 100%, that's what lights my heart on
Mm.
fire.
I got goosebumps all over me and I have some hot tears in my eyes because that's exactly why I wanted to have this podcast, is so that people like you or anyone listening could be involved in these conversations. Last
Hmm.
month, actually it was this month. Oh no, yes. Last month, May, my graphic shirt subscription club, the shirt said, the world is limitless for you. And
Oh.
they were words that were spoken to me from another woman entrepreneur, and she said that to
Hmm.
me. And And it like took my breath away. Just the fact that I was like, she believes that. And is that true for like, do I believe that? Do I believe that the world is limitless for me? And all of a sudden I was like, I want everyone to know that and to believe that like the world is limitless for you. And so I love that you hearing conversations or experiences from other women didn't
Mhm.
for it was triggering at first. And you've admitted that. And you said you were jealous and you were frustrated.
Mhm.
And I love that you decided to step into your own power of saying, I can choose to also be someone who is following their passion, following a new purpose, following what I actually really want, because it's
Mhm.
true. The world is limitless for all of us. We just have to choose how to get there, right? We have to choose something new. Sometimes we have to let go of things that we love or let go
Mhm.
of things that are comfortable or let go of
Yeah.
expectations of other people. But
Mhm.
to step into that unlimitless is what is that word? To step into that world of possibilities, we have to own the
Yes.
decisions and we have to make the move. So, gosh, that's good. And what is something that you do to protect the peace of your soul?
Honestly, if now that I am having family and work together, having very structured time.
Yes.
So I cannot live in chaos. So when it's bedtime, it is bedtime. And I am a stickler with it because with my husband having his business, myself having mine, and just doing the mom thing, um, when they go to bed, that is my time and his time together, where we talk about our day, we talk about what our plans are, what our goals are, or it's just my time to just be alone
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, sit in silence or,
Mm-hmm.
watch my, shows that I need to catch up on or read if I want to or work out if I want to. So having structured time, I absolutely need to have to keep my peace. And
Proud of you.
everyone has to have peace in the
Yeah.
house.
No, I'm really proud of you for that because I think that it's healthy for you. I think it's healthy for your kids watching you work. One of the hardest things that I experience is anytime when I would say, I'll be done in 30 minutes. And then it was 2 hours later. Or if I said, give me,
Yeah.
5 minutes and I can help you. And then that wasn't true. I wasn't really, so I think setting those boundaries for yourself and also for your
Hmm.
family so that they can trust you and you can trust them. And like, it just makes everything function so much better. And there's so much less resentment and exhaustion around that. So way to
Yeah.
go. She's just started her
Thank
business and
you.
yeah, she's just started her business and she's already got this figured out. Like you're a genius. I'm so excited. Where can the listeners find you?
So I'm on Instagram. I'm also on Facebook, but my Instagram is Patrona_VS. So Patrona is it's Spanish for female boss. So
Oh,
Patrona
I
_VS.
love it.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Okay, well, we will link that in the show notes. Dee, thank you so much for coming on, for sharing, and for being really open and honest with us about your journey and your experiences up until this point. I'm cheering you on. I can't wait to see what you do with your business. And thank you so much for your time.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. This was awesome. I really appreciate it.